Okay, welcome to the third video of this first lesson. This section is about 22 slides, so it's quite long, but it's the longest section of the whole lesson. After this, we have 3 shorter pieces for you to do. But don't let 22 slides daunt you, because if you've done the other wiki, all of this is just going to reinforce what you've been looking at. So hopefully this will just answer some of the thoughts and ideas that you were having, and hopefully I will get to fly through them quite quickly, because you already have that information. So just brainstorming, these were some of the events that I came up with. With teaching this module to the full-time students this last semester, certainly at the beginning of the semester we were looking a lot at the royal wedding and all that entailed and what was going to be going on. So that's quite a good one to look back on as an event, because now we can look at it and see the success it was and think about evaluating it from a different perspective. But there's also some of the festivals. I've only named a few here, and lots of awards ceremonies, and even as I record this, there was some soap award last night as well. You might even think about the Eurovision Song Contest. So there's events going on all around us that are really high profile, plus all those much smaller ones that we take for granted or don't know about that are going on. So in terms of a definition, the textbook that I've recommended defines an event as being increases in leisure time and disposable income have led to a vast increase of public events, celebrations and entertainment. And governments support events to promote strategies for economic development, nation building and destination marketing. And corporations embrace events for marketing strategies and image promotion. So those are just some examples that you will have looked at and that we've been talking about, and that you might not have taken into consideration, particularly events led by the government that include things like the G20 areas. So traditionally, humans have marked important events in their life since the dawn of time. And if you just look at this list, there's a few here. Plus, you've got things like graduation, that's an event that you'll be looking forward to and thinking about for 12 months' time. So I'm sure that many of those are pretty familiar. And we have a very rich tradition of rituals and ceremonies. In the UK, we have a very rich nature of different cultures and ethnicities, and they bring their own traditions with them that we celebrate even more and add to. And in addition, we've got fairs and festivals and the summer of sporting events that are coming up, and exhibitions as well. So festivals were traditionally a time of celebration, relaxation and recuperation, following perhaps periods of hard physical labour, sowing or harvesting of crops. The essential feature of festivals was the celebration or reaffirmation of community or culture. And the artistic content of such events was quite often variable based on religious or ritualistic aspects like music, dance and drama. And there's lots of exhibitions and trade shows that we can think of as events. I'm sure you can think of some alone, like Hotel Olympia or the restaurant show. But there's just many, the World Travel Trade Show that happens. I'm sure you can think of a few. There's lots of different food fairs and exhibitions too. So when was the events industry born? Well, we suggest that perhaps in 1871 bank holidays were made lawful in the UK, and the monarch has since retained power to proclaim additional bank holidays. We've just had a whole pile of them thanks to the royal wedding, and next year when the Queen celebrates her Diamond Jubilee, there'll be another bank holiday, I think in June. But it goes back even further than that as well. In 1915, Britain held its first British Industries Fair at the Royal Agricultural Hall, and that moved on to Earl's Court, Olympia and Castle Bromwich. And the reason for mentioning that is because it was one of the bigger fairs or events, or conferences, however you want to see it, that took place of the modern era. In 1951, we had the Festival of Britain that celebrated the centenary of the Great Exhibition and Britain's emergence from the Second World War. It was held at the South Bank Centre, and many of the buildings that you can see there now date back to 1951 and were built as part of that festival. In the 50s and 60s, We had a rapid increase in communities from the West Indies and South Asia, and that led to the Notting Hill Carnival starting in 1964. And now we have lots of popular music festivals. The Isle of Wight Festival started in 1968. And there's Sonisphere that's now in its third year as perhaps a more modern day one. In the 70s and 80s, a whole range of multi-purpose venues were built to cater for these different conferences and exhibitions that were going to take place. And Excel opened in 2000. And since then, we've had football stadia start to open its doors as exhibition centres as well. And for example, Wembley. In the 80s, we started to see a huge increase in sporting events. The Open Golf Championship, Wimbledon, Royal Ascot, the Grand Prix and rugby events. And the reason for that growth of those events was because of TV and the marketing campaigns that could put these events on the global map. So strictly speaking, the Chambers Dictionary defines an event as anything which happens, result, incidence or occurrence, especially a memorable one, contingency or possibility of occurrence, an item in a programme, an organised activity at a particular venue. So really a very broad description of what an event could be. These are some of the types of events that are categorised by size and might be local or community. They might be major events or hallmark events and even mega events like London 2012. They could be done by formal content looking at cultural events, sport events or even business events like agricultural shows. So there's 4 categories of exhibitions. Category 1, which are exhibitions held in qualifying venues that are around 2,000 square metres. Category 2, which would be one-day public exhibitions. Category 3, which are exhibitions that are primarily outdoor in qualifying and non-qualifying venues. And then Category 4, which are exhibitions that are held at non-qualifying venues. Do you really need to know that? Not really. They're not heavily used, but they're part of the theory and it's worth just understanding that. The structure of the events business works along the lines of event organisations, event management companies, event industry suppliers, industry associations, external regulatory bodies, and then publications as well. And it's worth looking at all of those aspects and thinking about those, and that really defines our event industry. These are a list of just some of the associations, and if you look at page 24 of the textbook, you'll see an even greater list. So this really is just a sample of those associations for such a relatively new industry as the events industry, and new because it was always considered part of hospitality before and now really sits separate on its own. And you can identify the knowledge and skills required by events managers through looking at some research that's taken place by the Institute of Managers. And they felt that the specific areas of knowledge that were appropriate to include within event management training included the history and meaning of festivals, some of which we've just been looking at, its evolution historically by the fact that it's probably always been here as long as humans have been alive, there have been events, but how over thousands of years really it's progressed into its own industry. The different trends in demand and supply, looking at the motivations and benefits that are being sought from the different events, and the roles and impacts of events in society, economy, environment and culture. And very much with London 2012 coming our way, one of the reasons we're hosting it and are putting so much money into that hosting is because we see a growing economy in event management and events and conferences and exhibitions that will come out of it the other side. It's not just 2 weeks. It's a very possible future, and you've only got to look at Barcelona for a very similar comparison, and certainly London are hoping to have something that's as successful as Barcelona was. So you also need to think about who's producing events and why, some of the concepts and styles of events, some of the settings, some of the operations that are unique to events, and the management style that's unique to events, as well as the marketing. And those are all aspects that we will look at over the coming weeks in the module. So an event manager is very much responsible for defining the parameters, policies and procedures, planning, designing and producing, overseeing coordination, developing and implementing marketing plans, preparing financial, business and evaluative reports, developing risk management plans, and overseeing financial management. So group skills that are required are administration, event planning and management, marketing, risk management, human resource management and professionalism. And some of the qualities that are identified of event management leaders include integrity, confidence, persistence, collaboration, problem solving, communication skills and vision.